So, you're writing a story about superhumanly capable individuals learning to harness the full potential of their power, to finally put an end to all life as we know, to save the world, but you're struggling to make that even slightly interesting. You're probably more into that Catboy you threw him in last week whose only purpose is to be cute. Get out of here, you freeloader! You could have your characters' respective abilities grow more powerful over time, giving the series a general sense of progression that ties into their personal growth as they face off against progressively more powerful threats. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with this approach and can work pretty effectively when it's pulled off right, whether you focus on the lesson inherent with this trope that anything can be achieved with enough hard work and dedication, or just lean into its absurdity by having universe-sized mechs throw literal galaxies at each other, destroying countless civilizations and killing trillions of species in the process, and why is no one talking about? But it's also a trope that's been done to death, especially in anime, and can easily get boring and repetitive after a while. Not to rag on Dragon Ball Z here, but it has I don't know how many different canon and questionably canon Super Saiyan forms, and like 2 different god modes for their sake. Boosting your character's power level to show their strength, while sound in theory, falls apart in practice. This is where My Hero Academia comes in with what, in my opinion, is a great solution. Developing its characters and their powers not by focusing on how powerful they become, but how skilled they become. It's almost the kind of logic you'd find in video games, specifically ones like Overwatch, where you're given a specific loadout of weapons and abilities and are just left to figure it out. Here, the progression doesn't come from upgrading your gear, it comes from learning how to best utilize what you already have. From learning which characters work best in different situations, on which maps or against which other characters, to figuring out all the little quirks of the game's mechanics to give you that extra edge in combat. Now you might say I'm comparing apples to oranges here, since what works in one medium is not necessarily going to translate well into another, but the general philosophy that guides this kind of game design can be seen in Boku no Hero. The characters all have their own unique set of powers and abilities, known as quirks, that they have to learn to make the most of, and are often thrown into situations that force them to do just that. The most recent arc of the series, as of recording this, even starts by having them create super moves by finding new and exciting ways in which to use their quirks. This is all helped along by the sheer variety of abilities present in the series. From electrical manipulation to super speed to shooting tape from your elbows to spewing acid to being a frog to having sticky balls. Sticky balls. Oh god, why are they so sticky? Actually, you know what? On second thought, I don't want an answer. Anyway, the skill-based approach to progression that's common in gaming can also be seen in how Hiroaka approaches its character's powers. What makes this so interesting is how it creates a less predictable path of development for those powers, and what they represent for the characters. The best example of this is in the show's protagonist, Izuku Deku Midoriya, a young superhero in training with dreams of becoming the world's greatest hero who, though initially born without any powers, is gifted one of the most powerful quirks in history, One for All. A power that lets one access a well of energy that magnifies one's natural and quirk-based strengths, by the world's #1 hero, All Might. However, Deku quickly realizes that he won't be able to use this power in the same way that All Might does, as his body simply can't handle the immense strain of it, to the point that after a particularly exhausting encounter with a villain named Muscular, Deku's told that continued use of his power at 100% could cripple his arms. But over time, he slowly figures out different ways to use this power, from learning to spread a small amount of it all across his body instead of pouring it all into his limbs, to significantly heighten his speed, strength, and agility without hurting himself, to later remembering that, oh yeah, legs are a thing, aren't they? And that he can use them to fight instead of taking the risk of damaging his arms even further. Despite having the same power as All Might, Deku develops his own unique style for using it that works around his limitations. This not only acts as a metaphor for Deku making a name for himself by standing on his own 2 feet instead of following in All Might's footsteps, but also keeps the audience guessing about all the possibilities Deku may be able to figure out in the future with this quirk. The strength Deku gets from One for All doesn't lie in its raw power, but in its versatility. However, the show is also quick to remind its characters about the importance of developing skills outside of their quirks. It's a lesson heavily emphasized by Aizawa, the homeroom teacher of Class 1A, the main cast of the show, that relying on a single gimmick to get by may corner you into situations your quirk won't be able to dig you out of. This point is often directed at Deku and the self-destructive nature of his power, but also feels like a warning to his students to not take their often dangerously superhuman abilities for granted, with Deku himself becoming the poster child for what an over-reliance on one's quirk can do to someone. Which is why I find the way in which Ochako, a bubbly main character with a fierce competitive spirit, develops her skills to be quite interesting. Her quirk allows her to make anything she touches float, an ability that is less flexible than she'd like. Nonetheless, she does her best to make it work as best she can until her fight against Bakugo in the sports festival, where her convoluted plan to win blows up in her face. pun intended. As heartbreaking as this loss is for her, it's also a revelation to her about just how lacking she is offensively. And so when the students travel to various hero agencies to get some experience, she specifically chooses to work under Gunhead, a hero known for a specific brand of martial arts, which we later see pay off with spectacular results. It's a small detail, but this short scene hits home how far Ochiko's come since the sports festival. It reinforces the idea of focusing on skill over strength in regards to a character's growth and development, as it creates a more tangible sense of build-up and payoff. In specifically showing how they learn to accept and work around or improve on their flaws and weaknesses, and ramifications those decisions have for them throughout the series. All of this comes together to remove raw power as the most important factor to consider in any of the situations the show puts its characters into. The show's villains often rely on surprise attacks or exploitative environments to challenge the heroes they fight and give themselves an advantage. In less dire situations, such as in the sports festival or in any of the exams the main cast go through, it is often the most tactically minded characters who come out on top. The show's focus on skill over strength means there's a necessity for its characters to adapt and think quickly to win, and levels out the playing field so that even the weakest of characters can have a chance against overpowered opponents. It creates situations in which no one is guaranteed victory, as even the smallest of details can be the difference between success and failure. In the end, when dealing with superpower-based fiction, focusing on a character becoming more skilled and flexible, rather than them becoming more powerful is, in my opinion, a much better way to approach their personal and power-based growth. It can not only be more specifically symbolic of their respective journeys, but is also just more fun to watch play out, as it pushes the story to take more creative and dynamic twists and turns that keep things fresh. It's like the old saying goes, it's all mind over matter. And yeah, those are my thoughts. I know, another My Hero Academia video in a relatively short time frame, but in my defense, it does a lot of things really well that can be learned from and that I think are just interesting to talk about. I've got one more left in my system though before I'm done, but it won't be coming out for around a month or two, so don't worry. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, what superpowers you'd like to have, what you think the best for empowering anime or generally is, etc. And thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this and want to see more, then be sure to watch my last video, where I talk about how Hinamatsuri blew my expectations out of the water. Or check out my video on Cells of Work and why its terrifying absurdity makes it so fun to watch. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to come fly with me. You can also follow me on Twitter for more updates about this channel and other stuff, and hopefully, I'll see you later.